Hello, happy Saturday. We have another Saturday food support group. And today I wanted to talk to you about something that came up with actually two of my clients. And they felt like they were in such a good place. Like they were flowing. They were what I picture of is like in a boat. Like you're in a boat and you have that balance and everything is just flowing, everything is working, the stars are aligning, your children are behaving, your spouse is kind, you get stuff done at work, like beautiful things are happening. And then you get those grab the side of the boat moments where you're just like everything is not okay. My car won't start. I have a flat tire. I stubbed my toe. I forgot my lunch. My kid will not put their shoes on. My husband is complaining about bills, this and that. There's just those moments where you literally have to grab the side of the boat. And what our bodies do is it reaches for something. It reaches for that candy bar to just like shove it in and hit that spot so that you can get some relief for a second. And what I have found is those moments, if you can just wait them out, they will pass. It's very difficult at first, but if you get really good at it, you can just tell your cravings, I see you. You can tell your environment, I see you. I see you throwing a fit. I see you doing all this stuff. And me eating a Twix bar is not going to solve that. All that's going to be is that immediate, like maybe first two bites, and that's it. That you're going to have that relief, that you're going to have that escape from your chaos. But if you just hold the sides of the boat and you wait out the craving, you will be shocked to see what will pass. And this is not easy work. That's why it's so important to come to meetings like this, to be able to communicate with other people or to work with a coach who can literally be there with you in the boat, to really literally be with you in that moment, to go, it's okay. Hold the sides of the boat. You're not going to rock. You're not going to fall out. You're going to be okay. And it will pass. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Like I said, I had a couple of clients this week who messaged me and they were like, I had a hold the sides of the boat moment and I got through it. And I didn't go to the donuts or the chips or the soda. And that was a huge win for them. Because normally that's what they would do. They would go to the chocolate, they would go to the nuts, whatever foods that would turn into a 6-month binge for them. They just held the sides of the boats and they reached out and talked to me and we were able to get through it. And it was a huge victory for them. Huge win. So today I would love to start our conversation with Tom. You wanted to share some stuff with us about LDL.
I already dropped something right off the bat.
That's okay. No problem.
Happens every single time, doesn't it?
You're fine.
I was going to say that first of all, an update on my wife. She's been freaking out lately because I had my situation with the bypass and all that. So she wanted to get all her medical checks done. So she had blood work done. She had the pocket. She's been doing carnivore with me, ish, I should say. But then I said, you got to get that CT calcium score, that, the x-ray of the heart to see if there's any calcium. And I said, I bet you $1 million you're going to have a score of 0. She goes, no, I know I've got build up. I know it's going to be 1,000 or above. So she just got her results yesterday, 0. So now when she goes to the doctor and he says, I'm putting you on a statin, which is going to be what I'm going to lead into. Now she could say, nope, I got a score of 0. I'm not doing statins. And if you want my husband to throw out a bunch of studies to give you, she doesn't need a statin. But anyways, just wanted to give you an update on that. So
awesome.
So So that was a big relief for her. Now that's one thing off of her mind. So I wish I had it, Sarah, but I didn't. So I was going to talk, we talked about LDL before, and I know that Amy has put up the graph that she likes to put on there.
The Framingham study.
Yeah, the Framingham study. And there's another study that is not Dr. Diamond, but Dr. Malhotra. I don't know if you know him. He's Mahima Malhotra. He's a cardiologist. He's prominent in this discussion. So he was on a study with Dr. Diamond, but this one was done recently. What is the year on this thing? It's 2000. This is a 2016 study.
That's recent.
It is, but I like to get sooner. But within 5 years, that's right on the edge. So they identified 19 cohort studies that had a total of 68,000 elderly people. That's a lot to collect that information. And what they found is that the conclusion was that high LDL-C is inversely associated with mortality in most people over 60. So that what they're saying is that, when you go to the doctor and they say you have high LDL-C and high cholesterol, you have to go on a statin. Well, the studies show that, the higher cholesterol and the higher LDL-C, you actually live longer. So we talked about that before, right? And I've got, at least 6 studies here that all show that. I've never found a study that proves the opposite. And the original cholesterol hypothesis that they did, and after Eisenhower had his heart attack, and they were trying to get statins on the market, that original research, when you go back and look at it, actually shows the opposite of what they said. So we've been lied to all these years about this. So if there's anybody that's watching the YouTube video of this later, my advice would be to look at the research for it. If somebody says you're on high cholesterol, high LDL-C, then you don't necessarily have to go on a statin. There's other, you want to try diet first, obviously. And so what doctors should be telling their patients is that to go on a low carbohydrate diet, high fat, low carbohydrate diet first. Try to get your health under control, because it's an insulin resistance problem that most people have. So
there is.
I just wanted to. So I don't want to bore a bunch of people, but I'm on a statin. I'm my cardiologist who actually wrote this last study. I thought I would go in there and he would say you don't have to be on a statin, but because I had the arteriosclerosis build up in my heart, so when they did the bypass, the arterial, all the buildup that I had is still there in my heart. So he's saying I have to take it because of that. I'm like, I still in my gut, and I feel like that's still not true. So they're forced by their medical guidelines that they give you a statin because that's what they're forced to give you. So there's not a lot of brave doctors out there and scientists. The research, they're afraid to do research, and the opposite because they'll lose funding. And I saw there was a tweet by somebody the other day. It was a cardiologist, and he said that my dog just opened the door. Hey, puppy.
That's okay.
But basically what that person said, and I don't want to use names here, but that all the studies that you see, most of them are financed by the drug industry. And that bias alone, I don't even know if I trust that anymore. And so there's another cardiologist that I saw that his tweets are getting really interesting, because before he was more cautious on what he said about that. Now he says, I no longer believe that high cholesterol is directly related to heart disease.
Yay!
The heart surgeon that does thousands and thousands of bypasses a year. So I get encouraged when I see that. And so I just, anybody that's watching this, just be cautious. First of all, when they tell you high cholesterol and high LDL, the triglycerides is the one that you want to make sure it's in the green range. If you have high cholesterol, don't sweat it. You want to, first thing you want to do is change your diet, get on a low carb diet, and try to improve your health that way. And before you go on statins, because statins are the one, that's another story that I can tell. Statins You know that the name of the official scientific name of it is the effect of HMG and CoA reductase inhibitors. And that's the studies that, so you can't really look for statin studies. You got to look for something that says reductase inhibitors on cognitive. So these weird scientific words. And in these studies, it shows that statins are, there was a study on elderly people where when they stopped the statin, 6 weeks after they stopped, and these are patients that had already been diagnosed with dementia. After 6 weeks after they stopped the statin, their cognitive abilities improved. They went back on it. 6 weeks later, their cognitive abilities went down. So there's so much out there. And of course, the pharmaceutical industry is so powerful. They provide so much money to these universities, people that do the research, and they're afraid to counter what they want to sell, which is drugs. So, and lastly, this morning, when we were in the store, I found this. So if you want to celebrate Christmas, I can't find anything to drink because I'm on carnivore with like less than 10 grams of carbohydrates. Vodka Spritz Colada, which is 9.6 grams of carbs per can. So,
no way.
Yeah, it's like a pina colada in a can. 9.6 carbs per can. It's called Ciroc Vodka Spritz Colada. So,
how many grams?
9.6. 9.6
of carbs. That's great. So you can still participate with the festivities.
Matter of fact, if I drink all 4 of these cans, I think there's 4 in here, that's still keto because it's under 50 grams of carbs. You're
right. That's great. What a great find.
I know that was a bunch of stuff thrown in there, and I typically do that every time I talk, but sorry about that.
No, you're fine. And I love what Amy put in the chat. She said she was glad that you didn't have a 0 was it calc score? Because
that was my wife.
But she's glad that you didn't, because then you wouldn't have such an amazing story, Tom. Anybody who's watched all of these, meetings understands the miracle that happened this year. From start to finish, Tom, this has been a miracle year for you over and over. And so I really am so grateful that score did not come back 0, because we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here with this miracle, amazing story that you have.
Appreciate that. I love you guys.
We love you too. And I'm so grateful for your transparency, even whenever you were in a hospital gown in the hospital, that you would come and share your story with us.
I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator because I'm drinking it tonight. So
no problem. Go right ahead. Let us know how it tastes. Is this meeting being recorded and put on YouTube? Yes. All of our meetings are recorded and put on YouTube. Yes. Every single one of them. All right. Next, Ricardo had a really good question. Ricardo, go ahead.
All right, everyone. I've been on the carnivore diet for the past 8 weeks. And sometime last month, I started to use a cane. I'm struggling to walk big distances.
So you were diagnosed before you started eating this way?
Yes, I was diagnosed in January of last year, January 21st. But it's also, and I didn't bring this up, but I was also diagnosed. I did go to the hospital. They diagnosed me with COVID. And they attribute the walking to that ailment. So I knew I had at the very least the flu. I thought I was going to get 10-0, but I got COVID. So, and from that point on, I stopped walking properly. Now I've been using a cane to walk.
And
around.
Can you share with us your diagnosis from January 2021?
Well, I was diagnosed with primary progressive multiple sclerosis, and it's very bad. It's, as you may know, it always elevates. There's no retraction to it. So it's advancing, and but I'm still on the carnivore diet, and I just wanted to put this out there. If after 8 weeks, if it's normal, not yet to see any results, right? So
yeah. So your question is, when do people typically see results using the carnivore diet with, specifically progressive MS?
yes, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So I can definitely share with you my story. And Kevin, I would love for you to share your story in just a second. But Kevin and I both I've got the remitting relapse MS. And so it's literally like comparing apples and oranges. It's almost a completely different diagnosis. And so I'm hoping that if we put this out on YouTube, that there can be somebody else out there who has the progressive MS diagnosis and share with us in the comments what your experience was. Because Ricardo would love to know. Ricardo will be, I'm sure, watching the comments on this video, and he would love to know if there's somebody else out there who's found carnivore to help with their progressive MS. Mine is not a typical situation because I was actually diagnosed at the very beginning of me starting to eat carnivore. I started eating carnivore because of my mental illness. And then it was presented to me, this diagnosis, and then I couldn't walk. And so I couldn't walk without an assistive device. I had delayed and slurred speech, more significant brain fog than I ever had with a mental illness. And so for me, my time frame was I started eating carnivore in February of 2019. My last MS symptom was May 9th of 2019. So that's, like less than 3 months. But for me, it was different because I did not take any of the medication. And so I don't know. I can't sit here and compare my situation to someone who's had MS for 20 years, somebody who's had MS for 2 years. I believe I've had MS for about 10 years. I can look back and see all the symptoms. I just didn't have it diagnosed until 2019. And also it's hard to compare because I eat high amounts of fat. And so it's really hard to say carnivore because what I do is I eat about 10 ounces of fat a day. And that's literally just beef fat, chunks of beef fat. And so I don't know if my situation would have been different if I hadn't eaten high fat and if I had taken the medication and if I had had the progressive MS. Like it's literally apples and oranges. But that I just wanted to give you that time frame just to give you some idea. Kevin, would you like to share your story?
Sure. Yeah. So I am 39 years old. I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting when I was 27, when I was on my my honeymoon in Norway, and things went really downhill really quick. And then, I went to a whole foods, plant-based vegan diet for my health, but ended up just feeding the things that are all the pathogens that contribute, the whole constellation of things that make up what MS is. It was going and feeding all of that, so I would feel better because I was on a whole food diet and not eating crap in a bag, but I was feeding the parasites and all the other things. And so I had even more of the bipolar aspect of having the relapsing remitting. And then I was diagnosed with bipolar back in 2017. And, I have an older brother who was into the Atkins diet, before it was cool kind of thing. He was a hipster, paleo, all that. And so he's always talking to me saying, hey, if you cut out the vegetables, there's a lower inflammatory response.
Yep.
And you should give it a try. And I'm like, but I had done the vegan, and I was like, man, I'm doing as well as I am because I'm vegan. And how bad would I be if I wasn't? I mean, I could have beef and all the saturated fat, and like I'll give myself a heart attack, and blah blah blah. And he said, well, I mean, how, it's treating you this well with vegan, so and you're all into experimenting. Go ahead and give and at that point my brother was carnivore, and so he said, go ahead and just cut out all the plants and see how that treats you. And so I was using an oxidative therapy treatment and all of that, and then I went on a 4-day 94-hour dry fast, which I don't necessarily recommend to people, just because that's very personal and individual to every person.
Yeah.
But I was in an absolute raging state of ketosis. And then, because I had been including some more animal stuff, but I was still eating a whole bunch of, big ass salads, and had all of that, and I was eating all of that. And it was just, I noticed that I was feeling more achy and stiff in my joints and getting the MS hug and all that.
Yeah.
And so then when I went on that dry fast, when I came out of it, I broke the fast with bone broth and raw eggs. And then I just slowly stepped it up to other animal foods. And so I was eating, I went full carnivore on May 27th of 2021. And after that point, it took a couple of weeks where I was then feeling better. And then I noticed I didn't have to take my cane when I went walking, and I didn't have to take the electric scooter when I went to the big box stores and, walked around shopping for meat and stuff. Then I realized how easy it was to shop for just meat. And it's like, well, I'm not going to be walking a whole lot around the big box store anyways, because there's nothing but absolute trash in all of these aisles. But I would just go back to the freezer and all that. And I was doing well, but I was having still some issues with that. And so I reached out to Emily because, she is the first carnivore with, who had been diagnosed with MS that I knew. And I asked her for some help and say, some guidance here. And she says, are you eating high fat? And I'm like, me having come from veganism, I'm saying, of course I'm eating high fat. I'm eating nothing but meat and saturated fat. I'm still kind of quasi scared that I'm going to give myself a heart attack and all this. And then he's like, oh dear, no, honey, you need to eat more fat. And she explained her process of how she went and incorporated higher fat into her diet. And I started incorporating more fat into my diet and going with because I always thought carnivore was like meat, protein centric and high protein and all that. And so then when I went and I switched from the high protein to the very high fat, and then I would also kind of go and incorporate the fat fasting kind of thing, where, I was just eating, sticks of butter and raw beef fat and all of that. And that's when I started having more of the actual, not having the lulls in my stamina and all of that. So, and then I had a thing where I was like, I'm cured. And I felt really great. And so then I just kind of got a little slack, and I was like, I'll cheat and I'll have a beer here and a beer there and some plant, and so a friend of mine was like, hey, because we would just hang out and eat dinner sometimes. And they were like, hey, can I make some Brussels sprouts. I'm like, sure, you know, I'm not going to make Brussels sprouts, but sure, bring some Brussels sprouts. And so then I had some Brussels sprouts, and all that, and I stopped using my oxidative treatment, and that's when I had a massive relapse, and that just put me down for the count for months. And now I'm, you know, almost back to that high that I was at last year in the summer. And so.
Yay. Oh my gosh. That's so good to hear, Kevin, because I got really scared whenever you reached out to me and told me that you had the relapse. And I was just like, no. But you know, it just goes to show once we've got diagnosed with MS, like we can't play with the others the way that other people play, you know. And I love, you know, what Tom showed us with the vodka drink and the carbs and everything that most people can do, but MS people just can't play.
Right.
I had a family dinner yesterday, and it was at this restaurant that is literally the mecca of gluttony. It's called the Home of the Throwed Rolls, and it's Lambert's, and it's in Southeast Missouri. And people walk around with pans of rolls, and they throw them at you. Like you know, you're like, okay, I'll catch one, and then they throw. So there's rolls. Literally, bread is being thrown in the air across your. I'm not joking. Like this is a real restaurant. And anyone who's been to Southeast Missouri has heard of this place. And they walk around with giant bowls and a big spoon, and they just dish it out on your plate. You want some fried potatoes? You want some macaroni and cheese? You want some fried okra? You want some molasses on your, they'll drizzle molasses on your roll. And so I'm like, you know, I don't think there's anything I can eat at this restaurant. So you know what I did, Kevin?
You fasted?
I brought my own.
Oh,
brought my own. I brought my raw fat and my raw meat, and I dished it out on the table, and I sat there and ate with my chopsticks right in the middle of Lambert's. And it was so freeing because my family loved me. My family has watched me come back from the dead mentally and physically. And they supported me. And the waitress didn't say 2 words to me. She asked what my order was. And I said, I have a severe food allergy. I'm not going to be ordering. I'm not. And I even brought my own water bottle. I said, wow. I'm just going to drink my water. And I got my food because I can't drink tap water, you know, especially in Southeast Missouri. Like, who knows if that's like triple filtered or whatever.
Right.
And the reason that I did that is because I can't play. I can't have a side of, you know, fried potatoes and okra, and I can't have Brussels sprouts.
Come on, Emily, just live a little, have a little fun, right?
Have a little relapse. Come on, right. Em. Don't you want to do it for the fam? Like it, you know, it's that time of the year. Don't you want to suffer for the next month with not being able to walk? No, I don't.
So following up on my story, and thank you for that tale of, you know, coming through and you know, how to succeed in normal life, right?
It's hard.
Yeah, but I really appreciate that. I've started incorporating more raw meat, and so I've got, whenever I get ribeyes, I just go and I sear for about 5 seconds on each side. So I get that crispy, nice, you know, cooked meat taste. But then the vast majority of the steak is raw, and I've been doing so much better with that. And so when I had you know, first gotten that big relapse last year, I went and got an MRI scan, and it showed that I had large tumescent, like tumor-like lesions on my brain, which are different than the ones that I've had in the past. And it was like, oh my gosh. And so that's when I went really strict on, you know, getting back to the full carnivore and not cheating and not living life, as it were, you know. But then on my more recent MRI, which was in, I think, August, it showed that the lesions on my brain and my cervical spine and my thoracic spine many had disappeared and the rest had shrunk.
Oh my gosh.
And were shrinking. And so, they were big, massive, like lumps of lesions. So
Wow.
I mean, they're diminished, they're getting smaller and all that. But yeah, it was just one of those, like, I've got the MRIs, I've got the slides to show, hey, this is my brain on carbs. This is my brain on carnivore and high fat. And I kind of want to make a t-shirt with that. But
yeah.
So I will be getting another MRI, I think in January. And so then I will be following up with that and saying, hey, this is where I'm at now. And just to get a progression of like, hey, this is me cheating. This is me being better. This is me after 8 more months of being better. So
yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. We'll definitely keep us updated. And Ricardo, I hope that somebody hears this with the progressive and reaches out and is able to give you their experience. Or maybe, Ricardo, you're that example, and you're going to be able to just eat more fat and continue to share your story with us.
I will. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for your question. Are these results normal? My electrolytes seem to be all over the place. So yeah, as far as I have talked to other people who eat high fat, it's hard to say if it's normal because it's not normal that people eat like this. So I can count on one hand of people who have literally talked to me. I've not one hand, probably 10. I can think of 10 people who have had MS who have messaged me and said, I did exactly what you told me to do, and my symptoms resolved. And so there are people out there. There's many people who have had this experience, but they did the work, and it, like Amy said earlier in the chat, it takes a while for people to adapt to be able to eat the higher fat.
mm-hmm.
And then, and then Kevin has his email there if you want to message him, Ricardo. And then, I love Sydney's story. So Sydney and I have worked together, and Sydney, just let us know where you were at the beginning and where you're at now. Oh, you're muted. Here, let me unmute you. There you go.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. I was going to say that when I first really started looking at the root of my eating addiction, okay, and then I realized, like, you guys have MS and I have what they call PTSD from being a child sex object for many years, taken, and many different little aspects that developed in my brain. Mother not helping, having to save my sisters, just all these little things, and having to do sexual things to eat at all.
Yeah.
And it did, it got to my brain, like it almost like I had tumors. Okay. Kind of like it's,
yeah.
I'm not completely cured. But from the day I started working with you, and you can probably tell, I'm off all my medications. And so I'm really proud that I did that because, I'm talking about medications from doctors. I still have to leave Sydney tools every day, to get through the day without binging. And one of my, I know that's terrible, but that is it.
That's not terrible. That's important. We need to be able to talk to people and say, it's not this magic wand that all of a sudden it's gone and you don't have to work on it the rest of your life. It's important for people to know you've got to work on it every day.
Yeah, because my only reward system whatsoever in a very fragile 7 years of my entire day in and day out was based around how am I going to get food today? And when I do get it, how much do I get? You know, and then Larry would keep the food right there. He'd keep the candy in his drawer and manipulate me through the
Your
day.
abuser?
Yes, my abuser, Larry Lawrence Lee Daly. He's now passed. He got life in prison and he died in prison. But that's okay. I forgive him. That's not what this is about. But from the situation and from the way I was developed that way, it made me a raging person that will even steal food from my workers. I told them, if you have chocolate on your counter or cake, this ain't a joke. I'm going to steal it. If I'm working for you, I will eat that. I used to be that way, not now. I have more control because I have, hold on, I'm shaking. I have been able to do what you were talking about and practice walking away from it. The more I practice, I've gotten less, where I could go a lot of hours without doing anything bad to my body. And I've been so grateful for that. And I know I have this little beast in me, constantly wanting that, to feel that feeling of, I'm like you said, when you're hanging onto the boat. Well, we forgot to mention, what about when we fall all the way out because a big ass whale comes and knocks you out and you're in there. You're in that food, right? Like you said, you fall all the way out. You can't hang on anymore. Who's going to get you? What lifeguard's going to come and get you? The National Guard? Emily Penton? Who's going to be there to pull you out when you fell in there? And so what can we do? And that is, number one, not beat ourselves up. That ain't going to help. We've done that for years. That ain't working. And that's why you always made me feel okay. You were like, I know this is weird, but you were like my mommy in that department. And it helped.
I loved you.
And you still do. And you kept your word, and you're very, very loyal. And that's what we need. We need loyalty. We're so tired. We've been let down so much. We need some loyalty. And the carnivore has shown loyalty for a lot of people. And the low carb, it's there for you. It's waiting. Come and get it. Like that song, when you're ready, come and get it. Nah. That's kind of like what the carnivore and excuse me, my little Pomeranian. That's what that diet is from God. He's saying, you are my people. You are my people here. If you eat this, this, and this, I promise you're going to feel a lot better and your body will be a miracle. And, like I'll give you a small example. It's kind of weird, but like my Pomeranian is born this way. It's in his DNA. Can't help it. He has plaque. Something about his DNA gets more plaque than any small dog, right? Well, the doctor tries to tell you $2,000 you can get your dog fixed. Well, they're forgetting to mention that. When you go on the medication, they put your dog down, that little dog can die easier. Okay. So how are we going to get rid of the plaque without going to the doctors? You know what I mean? And save our dogs and not fear that we don't pay that $2,000 to that vet, our dog's going to die. So we have to find solutions. And that's what the carnivore is, a solution. It's for a lot of people, and the low carb and the ketovore, and finding ways to adapt to a new culture. That's what because I've been in a sex culture as a child so much with food, and I have to work through so much crap that it took over for a long time. And I finally am not abusing and drinking my ass off to death. And then binging, because that little craver thing in there, when you drink a lot, you want to eat more sugar. Oh shit. That's why Denny's is so popular. And they did anyway. So
but what I love about your story.
Found you. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you found me too. And I'm so grateful. And what I think is really important is that at the very beginning, you didn't see that this was possible. And I had to kind of be a broken record a little bit and keep believing in you and keep loving you and keep
clean your
telling
needle,
you.
baby. Clean your needle, baby. Get it? When you know how the needle when you play the record over and over, you got to clean the needle.
On the broken record.
That's what, because you had to, and boy, was I pissy. I was pissed off.
You wanted that sugar.
I took your thing.
Yeah.
The only thing that I could depend on was sugar and food. I'm still not perfect, but that's something I'm aware of now. I mean, for God's sakes, and it's my last thing I think I have to deal with. It's my last on my beautiful list.
And honestly, though, you've really come so far. Like, I really am so amazed with how you've been able to win in this area and to know that you are powerful. You are so powerful to be able to release this trauma.
Oh, it feels amazing. It actually feels like the day when I got saved from a phone call, when they walked in and took them away from me. And my mother gave me the meanest look you ever did see. And that made me want to run and eat a big ass cake. And I ain't kidding, the whole cake, because I would just shove it in there. Like you said, shove it.
Mm-hmm.
But I got free that day. It was a miracle. It felt like you won bigger than the lottery. When you're freed from being imprisonment of food or anything, you wake up feeling freer and freer. Well, I got freed that day. And I mean, tell you what, I can't express the joy of a 13-year-old girl getting freed.
Yeah.
That's how I feel with my food addiction. I feel like I'm getting, it's a harder because it's always been there for me, comforting me.
Mm-hmm. It was a coping technique.
But if I want to live, I have to do it because my gallbladder will kill me. It will. My pancreas, I learned every organ I got now. I've destroyed them all, almost. I was lucky. I should have, drinking beer and Bloody Marys in the morning are fantastic, and swimming all day, but you can't live like that. And I don't do that for a long time. But when I was younger, I really did do a lot of abuse to my body because of someone else's mental brain issue. And what's exciting is they have a new thing coming out, even more. It's on TED Talk about how even people that have diseases that are hurting others or not, it doesn't matter if you're hurting others or not, that you can heal that brain now. They're going to be able to heal so much when we start looking at the brain.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Those little parasites.
Mm-hmm. And there's a book out by a Harvard professor. His name is Dr. Chris Palmer. And he just wrote the book that I believe is going to bust open the mental health field.
Oh, I'm so excited. I really am. I'm so excited for everybody. We are getting a miracle because we're opening up and telling the truth.
Yep, absolutely.
We have to open up. It's painful. You be careful who you tell, because you got to protect yourself. If you're mentally ill, you have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
No one's going to listen, so.
And so
sorry.
Yeah. No. And so if other people want to hear more about Sydney's story, I interviewed her about being a child sex slave. And it is, we don't hold back.
I have, my life is nothing compared to the little kids that are dealing with horribleness now. I survived it. I'm over it. No, but I want other people protected. No, my story, I'm nothing. No, my pain is nothing. There's way worse.
It might help people. It might help people who need to hear your story.
Well, I hope it does. I hope they know one thing, and that is spit it out, baby. Spit it out like a llama. Or whatever those things are that spit at you. Spit it out. Get it out of you. I don't care what it is. Write it down, rip it up, tear it up. But you got to purge, or it's not going to, I'm telling you now, it will rot. Just like a freaking piece of something. It will rot in you. Yeah. That's the whole truth. You like when you go to the pimple popper, you got to clean it out. Right? Clean it all out. Fill it back in with love and beauty. And then you are free, baby.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just saying I watched that interview, and that was some real raw stuff.
I'm sorry about that.
No, don't be. No, don't be. It was convicting. It was really beautiful to see all the underbelly of horrible history, and to hear you as you were coming and recovering and overcoming that. And so it was a great amount of inspiration. It was really hard. And I had to stop and, take a walk for 20 minutes, here and there, just because
I understand.
It was a little heavy, but I'm glad that you did that. And I feel better for having heard your testimony. So thank you for doing that and being vulnerable to put that out there.
Wow. Yeah. Well, my husband said that the video, because I have you can see how I go from one thing to the next. I never really got to tell all the stories. There's so many. There's some really interesting ones. It's interesting to watch this poor man act all day. And it's interesting to see they don't, it's just, anyway, but I've been through a lot of things. Yes, you're right. Thank you. And, but nothing, I'm nothing. And, so I've had God from the beginning. God is there. When I was 4.5 and Larry got in the vehicle and said, hello, sexy, to me. I remember it. I remember like it was yesterday. And God said, he's one of them. Beware. And then God, talked to me throughout my abuse and told me it's almost over. And I have a testimony of that God lives. God is real. He's a spirit. Yep. He's in there, man. I promise. I got a testimony. If I could say anything. And he loves every single ounce of every human. Okay, that's all I'm going to go on, because I'll go on forever.
I'm looking forward to part 2.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's my gift, unfortunate gift, that I am here to do a job, but I can't do it much longer. I'm like a wet noodle hanging there with nothing left in me. My armor needs to be shined and pearled, baby, because I am worn out.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to go to that video where Sydney tells part 1, and in the show notes there, it says how to get her book, where she goes through all of the details. And then we will be publishing part 2 soon. I'm still working on editing it, and we will publish that. But thank you so much for your story, Sydney. Thank you guys,
everybody, for your stories. I love them all, and I love you all.
Not a problem. I think it's so important to have a safe place for us to share, all the way from the science to the heart to the trauma to everything.
Yes.
So
thank you. Gosh.
Thank you guys so much for this meeting, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.